And the main topic today, although there'll be time to bring up anything you want, is open circles. Open circles, I'm sorry that Glenn Barker is not on the call, because Chicago has just done a brilliant job with open circles, and every area I know that's doing open circles is getting real good results as far as enrollment. So my project for the year is really to promote open circles. We're going to be doing them here in NorCal, and encourage you to do them in your area. And I've asked...
Joining and configuring your audio and video within a Zoom meeting can be quick and easy.
That's good.
If you see the Join Audio icon in the upper left-hand corner
you can
of your
mute
Zoom
George
window,
because you're the host.
simply select the
Right.
icon and select...
There we go. Great. Thanks. So I've asked Dan Baldwin to be on the call, as he is the, besides being the Mustang maven, he is also the open circles maven. So, Dan, I want to turn the call over to you to say whatever you have to say, and then entertain any conversation, other men's experience, questions, etc.
Excellent. So I'll give a little history on the project. It's about a year and a half in the making. Boyson, Glenn Barker, myself, a couple other areas that were practicing with open iGroups kind of sat down and came up with some of the questions and concerns about our open iGroup and how they're working, and we looked and collected best practices across the nation and put it all together kind of in a manual. So in a short, after making it, we presented it at the iGroup Council. They liked it, we put it out publicly, and they're happening, growing greatly by leaps and bounds. And the results that I'm getting from communities that are checking in is really, really good enrollment. So on the basic for it, I'm going to share my screen for a second here and show you where some of the resources are in a typical MKP homepage with your profile. Where you would find the resources for this is under Find iGroup Resources. And on this, you'll see these tabs across the top. And there's the iGroup Home tab. And then on the iGroup Home tab, we have iGroup Resources here. And we have a whole section dedicated to Open Circle resources. The new manual or workbook that we have is this first button, which is a great 28-page. I'm going to kind of go through a little bit today, but there's also a presentation which Glenn Barker recorded at the iGroup Council about a year ago about how important open circles are for driving enrollment in his own backyard. And then we have some other alternative things here, including marketing resources. I will point on the marketing resource real quick here because I like doing that, is we do have flyers and brochures specifically for marketing open men's circles. And those would be in Open Men's Circle materials. And these are posters. This is one of the ones I like, Men Like Us, where you can hang these out and you put in where your open men's circle is, put it in a library, put it in a cigar shop, put it in a variety of different places, wherever you can think of, and also to hand out to therapists. I think therapists are a great way to engage and promote enrollment in open circles, but we'll talk about that during the mentoring, during the marketing part of an open men's circle. I'm going to go back to the resource book here. Again, it's Find iGroup Resources. iGroup Home tab. And Open Men's Circle Workbook. And if you download this is a downloadable book. It's about 28 pages long, 26 pages long, where it talks first in the section of why open circles. And I'm not going to go through the visual of this, but I want to talk about it personally, why open circles. There's a big difference between an open iGroup and an open men's circle. An open men's circle, an open iGroup is, I sit in a circle of 8 or 9 men, and if I have a friend, I might bring him to my iGroup. We might have on our V groups, open to new people, but it's not a container that's designed to specifically handle new brothers or uninitiated men, or I should say that non-graduate men coming on into a circle and ready to do that. Many of our groups struggle with, what do we do? What do we do different when a new person shows up? And this manual really talks about switching your format to be as friendly as possible to an ungraduated man showing up in circle. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts in here around that. We have promotional, basically flyers, so that when the man walks in, there's a context presentation piece, there's the confidentiality agreements, and a talk about what the Mankind Project is. And then there's actually how to go about facilitating well the beginning stages of an open men's circle, which is, the welcoming process, and then what are the rounds and what we do in the rounds. One of the rules we're in open circles is we're trying to eliminate warrior talk as much as possible, so that it doesn't, we don't appear cult-like, we don't do smudging, we don't do rituals. It really is welcoming a person off the street and saying, hey, here is the basic on how to sit in circle with other men and how powerful it is. So the manual has the facilitations on it, but it also has a section on questions answered, like how long can a man sit in an open men's circle? Next steps, how to stay in relationship with him after he's attended his first, second, and third open men's circles, how to keep your open men's circles going, and a lot of good tools on that. So that's the facilitation part. Before I get to the marketing part, let me hold space for Boyson. He's worked a lot on this. Let me ask him if you want to add anything about the facilitation part or the difference part. You're on mute, Boyson. And I'll stop.
Dan and I fought about this, which was really awesome. So Dan, Gladden, and I battled it out for a while on this, because I've been running an open men's circle in Springfield here for over 6 years now, and was really attached, had really big attachments to the way that we've done it and the way that we've always done it. And part of the letting go for me in this, when we made this workbook, was around, okay, how can we go even further in terms of creating accessibility? How can we go even further in terms of opening and creating a welcome space for men? And that involved letting go of some things for me. And the closer we get to this in my open circle, the easier it is to have the conversation, the easier it is to invite the man back, the easier it is to welcome a man into the circle, and the easier it is also to see this mysterious curtain for the guys who show up, the mysterious curtain, and what's behind the curtain, what's behind the curtain, what's behind the curtain, that you guys have all done this thing. That's working for us. So that's just about this process. Read through the protocol. It's a good protocol.
So a larger vision on this is, my goal is I'd like every community to have an open men's circle in it. In fact, I'd like every community to have more than one open men's circle in it. That being an open men's circle that is publicly facing to the public and well advertised both internally and externally. Hey, do you want to sit in circle with men? Here's a place to come. It's happening every week, and we're guaranteeing good facilitation skills, and we know what we're doing in these circles. One thing we know is when we use meetup.com to advertise it outwardly, we get good results. Here in Wisconsin, in the last 6 months, we've had about 8 men come through meetup.com. Through the use of meetup.com in the search engine for Google searches, when you type in Milwaukee men's support, it is raising our awareness when you type in a search engine from being number 5, used to be buried, to being the top search that you land on when you look for men's support, Milwaukee. So meetup.com can drive a lot of exposure and create definite referrals. Out of the 8 we've come through, we've had about a 75% success rate of men actually attending the weekend and signing up to attend the weekend. and have had no negative feedback. The other two that we had are still orbiting and probably will do the weekend as well. So it's been very, very well received. And you can drive more traffic by people who sign up on meetup.com, also signing up to local Facebook pages as well. And we can talk about local Facebook pages in a different segment here around how to use Facebook pages for enrollment. But open circles, how do you go about creating them?
I interrupted you, Dan.
You bet, go for it.
Just to show you, so he's just talking about Meetup. We've been running our Meetup page for close to that 6 years now, since 2008. Look at that. 266 guys. I probably met 10% of those, but when I put energy into this, so tonight's group, there are one brand new, coming back again, discovered us because of Open Circle, like new guys showing up every week, new guys joining every week, and we've had multiple guys showing up. And as Dan said, those guys convert into participants in the new warrior training.
Thanks. Great visual on that, Boyson, on how powerful it is. It takes a person, though. That's what I mean when we're talking about creating an open men's circle. We can create one and list it in our V group, but it doesn't really drive it unless you have a good team for it.
Poison, excuse me, Dan. Poison, is that template for the meetup page available?
Yeah, I have that whole thing packaged, actually.
Would you send it to me so I can send it out to this the enrollment coordinators V group?
Yes, I can send it to the. Yes, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Sorry, Dan.
That's no problem. I didn't know that there was a package for Meetup, so that's a good another resource. Boyson, would you mind taking a note and capturing that and putting a link to it and putting it on the iGroup resource page directly? I think that's really, really good. As we get more best practices around this, we're going to have more and more resources to help. When we're talking about creating an open iGroup, the three core components I have is we need the energy of the hunter. And the hunter are people like you, enrollment coordinators, that are going to be going around to everybody and saying, hey, somebody to these circles. If it meets every other Tuesday, if it meets once a month, but it's creating the energy, and it's that energy of, wow, we had 3 or 4 or 5 people show up today. And it's constantly pushing that energy and inviting people to it and finding other people to invite people to it. Now, once you have good hunters in the room, there's facilitation, and that's the farming. I call this the hunter, the farmers, and the geeks. So the farmers are the facilitators and the people who welcome and the people who follow up with men after they've already been to an open men's circle. So you have those people that are willing to do the energy. And then the geek is the person who's managing the meetup.com website, who's capturing the people who enroll and adding them to the list of people who have come and are certain getting emails to welcome them back, and also sending out all the V group announcements to area info lists and websites celebrating, hey, we had 5 people show up last month. Let's see if we can get 10 next month. And you're creating this synergy around it. So that's my suggestion, is creating teams, or if you have an iGroup, which I was surprised. We looked today. I'm going to share my screen for a second. This is really incredible. When we go into an MKP Connect site and search for open iGroups, we already, in the last 6 months alone, have created close to 30 of these open circles. Are they advertising on meetup.com? I wonder. Let me see, where do I start for that? What did I do around here, Boyson? Searching for a iGroup. I want an iGroup, not a V group, that's why. So under type, open men's circle, and you can put your area in here and see, or your community in here, or city, and see where your open men's circles are. But here we already have a list of already created open men's circles. So there's Ann Arbor. I don't know if Ann Arbor is using a meetup.com. Actually do. They do, but I don't know some of these other circles. Are they using meetup.com? Are they advertising it? Do NWTA staffmen, do NWTA staffmen know to refer people to these open men's circles? You were saying, Ken? I think you said something.
Syracuse uses one. We've had some good success with it.
Right.
Can I ask you a question about this?
Sure.
One of the big things I brought up a lot is it refers to closing, getting these guys to commit to do a weekend, because we invite them into our circle, and we have 4 to 5 guys who haven't done a weekend yet. We need to close them and get them in. And there's a part of me that says I want to say, if you don't do the weekend, see you later. And there's a part of me that says I don't want to exclude them. So what would you suggest on things like that?
Yeah, suggested best practice on this is do not take your current I group and have it meet every week and have newcomers come. A great best practice on this is to have it every other week. That the open circles on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of the month, and the 2nd and the 4th are for closed NWTA grads. You can let the men know that, because you'll hear people that are showing on the 1st and 3rd, they'll talk about what happened on the 2nd and 3rd. You can say, well, that's for the more advanced stuff. We do it in more advanced stuff on 2nd and 3rd, and we can only do that in a safe container of people who have been through this training.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if people just want to stay and come to the 1st and the 3rd, I would let them do that as long as they want to. And, through informal conversations, sometimes they'll eventually take that next step when they're ready. Boyce, I'm going to let you've done this for 6 years, so go ahead and share your experience with it. You can go even more deeper than I am. Are you on the call, Boyson? He might be switching to his cell phone. Trying to unmute
Am I
himself.
off mute? Am I off mute?
Yep, you are off mute now. Go ahead.
Hey. Yes, 6 years. I missed something. I got disconnected for a little bit of time there. And what I want to say is we've had guys show up, come to open men's meetings for literally 2 years. We're taking any next step. We have guys come once. We have guys come once, and at the end of the night say, when's this next training, and sign up for the next training immediately. And letting that be okay, letting it all be okay, makes the enrollment conversation a whole lot different and a whole lot easier. I'm in.
Oh, thank you. That's good stuff to think about. David and I will have to really talk about that.
And again, still very new at all this. One of the exciting things I'm sharing is we're going to be starting on the 4th Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. A Zoom call for all people that are doing open circles as a place to learn best practices and share gold. So anybody that's doing these and want to share and bits about things they've experimented with, please come to that. There will be announcements going out this week and next week about that meeting to let people know. And don't have to make it to the first one. Come anytime you want to.
Dan, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing, and I just need some clarification, is you're setting up these open circles as separate entities, not as iGroups per se. So my question is, how would a best practice look like if, say, once a month we decided our iGroup was going to be an open circle and that's how we advertised it?
Yeah, that's how it's sold in the manual. Our preference is instead of iGroups declaring themselves that they're open to new brothers, that they consider changing to once a month being an open men's circle and learning how to do this new facilitation on that month. So that's the best practice model there. Is already go to an existing iGroup. This is not going to be for every iGroup. So some iGroups are just check-in iGroups or not very motivated. Others are very, very passionate and they really are hungry and they want to grow and reach out to new brothers. So it's finding the right iGroups that are willing to do it and then having them convert to once a month or twice a month being an open men's circle.
Okay, because what I see in my I group is we've been open for years. Since 2006, we consider ourselves open. We have guys come kind of whenever. But I think that having a protocol and making it standardized would maybe make that more predictable for the guys in the group, and also predictable for the public, obviously, because they don't really know there's something going on until we start to advertise it, right?
Yeah, that would be my question. You might have an open iGroup that's open to anybody, but if you're not advertising, you're not on meetup.com, you're not letting all brothers know. I'll share in Wisconsin, too, the Open Men's Circle has turned into be a drop-in iGroup for people. So some people who can't go and commit to a regular iGroups, they're often showing up and loving the work that's being done in an Open Men's Circle. And it is enough for them. It's actually sometimes more than what they're getting in a check-in iGroup. And so it's another cool place to have that available resource in your community.
So that, Dan, can I jump in? That's totally my experience also. It becomes an open iGroup for guys to come and visit and learn new stuff. We had 14 guys in Circle 2 weeks ago. And Randall, we've set our Open Men's Circle up as a totally different entity in MKP Connect. It's a different list, has a different group listing, different time. So there's two things. There's the Springfield Uprising, which is my iGroup that meets the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. And there is Springfield Open Men, and Open Men meets on the first and third. So we've completely set it up as a different thing.
But what I'm hearing is that it's actually the same group. It's just you're on one night a month, you're different, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
I got it.
Great.
Hey, Dan, I have a quick question about a term you used. Instead of initiated and uninitiated, I heard you using graduates and non-graduates or something. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, great point brought by Boyson when we were talking about language and how it lands on people. You know, the piece that uninitiated versus initiated, you know, I've been initiated many times in my life. And one of those times was through the NWTA of the Mankind Project. So for me as a person showing up in a circle that never went through the NWTA saying you're uninitiated, there couldn't be a language barrier there, as opposed to you've never been through the NWTA.
Thanks.
Great question there. And that's how we're used to saying, we'll see. We're going to try to encourage people to go grad versus non-grad versus initiated versus uninitiated. We'll see. It'll take a long time before that language change captures all the way throughout the organization.
I have another question for you, Dan.
Yeah.
Or Boyson. We've got 4 guys that are pretty consistent coming that are uninitiated men. And one of them has been about a year, maybe a little more, and we'd like to get these guys committed to doing a weekend. They've said it a few times, but because we've had false starts on our weekends in upstate, we haven't had one for them yet. So it's going to be a little bit of a difficult conversation, I think, to put some kind of restriction or some kind of, we're going to meet every other week. That's what we're facing, and I want to make sure I don't lose these guys because of it, and I know it's subjective and individual as well. Do you have any suggestions on that? Because they know a lot of our processes already. We're not shy about, we don't hold back so much with these guys.
Yeah. I can share from my own personal experience 4 or 5 years ago, experimenting with an open iGroup and having some core men that were great men. These were therapists. These were people who do speak our language and could do lots of facilitation. And we had to sit down and talk to them. Somebody's clipping their nails, so if they could mute themselves if you're clipping your nails. We sat down and talked to them and just said, hey, we're growing our circle. We're going to be moving into something new. We acknowledge that you have a lot of these skills. And there's also a piece that there are things that we as men here have been through that you haven't been through, and we don't have the same context. So what can we do to help you so that you have the same language and have the same experience so it doesn't hold back the group? And when we went from that avenue, that they're equals, and it's more about context presentation and having the same experience. Since we're talking about certain things, they were more willing to kind of go to the weekend, especially if we're all supported to get those 4 through. We had 2 that went through, and then when they came out the other side, they were like, "You're dang right. Of course. I don't know why you didn't do this a year ago, because nobody's really talked to us that way around it." Now, once you get those 4 in, or even if you don't get the 4 in, you could say, well, we're going to move to this every other week. We've already exposed to you stuff, but do you understand that for the newcomer, we don't want to do that work anymore on our off days? We want to give them an introduction, because we don't know who we're getting off the street, and that's the whole thing about Open Circle, is you don't know who you're getting off the street. So you need to know about your mental health resource team, whoever's a facilitator or whoever's there. There needs to be a little bit more conscious energy in how deep are we going, and that we're not going all the way, like to some of the stuff we do in our I groups.
And I agree with that totally, and I think that does hinder our I group from actually getting deep sometimes.
And that's why you have the deep nights for the ones that have gone through the graduate.
We've had men say that before. I really want to have a deeper thing, and I don't feel comfortable. So that's where we're headed with this. I just wanted some new language around it so I could wrap my brain on it.
Ken, if I could add something, these men have been with you for a year, and they haven't done the weekend, and I understand there are circumstances like you haven't had the weekends for them to do it. I think there's a very good chance that if you basically, in a good way, like Dan was saying, tell them, look, if you want to continue in this format, you need to do the weekend context or whatever, that'll be what they need to go into the weekend. And as long as they can continue to get the benefits of the group without doing the weekend, they may just hang on. Kind of fish or cut bait.
Yeah, I know. I'm at that point too with them, and I want to make sure that they understand that it's not. And this is the language that's developing in me as we speak. That it's for the good of the group, and they are totally bought into the group, and they want to see the other men get what they need. By framing it by saying, we're holding back for you guys. We need our other guys to actually do this deep work. So we're going to have to change the way we do things a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think, David? I know we're talking about specific iGroup stuff, but hopefully it's relevant to everybody.
No, I agree. There have been times for myself personally that I've wanted to get into some very deep stuff that a new guy has shown up, and I didn't get into it specifically because I didn't want to scare the guy out of the building.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky that I've had brothers there that I could talk about afterwards, but I didn't go into it to a level that I would have had we had time in the meeting.
Great. Dan, anything else before we open it up to general discussion? Anything else you want to make sure that you, or Boyson, that you want to cover?
I'll give the Chicago example. Chicago, we wanted to be able to place men in circles where we weren't going to lose them once we had leads. So this was one of the answers to it is we created the 5 open circles. The other one is we wanted to strategically place open circles instead of just being at the lodge in the downtown across Chicago. So we found strategic placements, one on the north side, one on the south side, one on the west side. We found teams that were willing to do them out there and on various nights so that there was a much more broader depth in the whole city of Chicago of choices to go to, and we were guaranteed good facilitation. The other part is these teams started being creative, and they started to find allied organizations to bond these with. So in Chicago, there was a men's cigar shop that an I group was kind of like meeting in informally, and the owner said, well, why don't you guys just have your meeting here? And that became a really unusual one. There's a therapist clinic that was willing, and this has been a great one, where they were willing to let an open circle happen there. And we have therapists that even weren't from that agency because they talked about it with other agencies. We had one therapist from across the street that walked over and dropped off a guy to that open men's circles. Here's the open men's circle I was talking about. Go to it. So I can't share enough the power of allied organizations, including spiritual organizations, social service organizations. We do know there have been some reports that open circles that do not happen in people's houses at coffee shops can work well, that it's less scary for men to show up in a public place. So those are other things to consider, is those allied organizations.
Great.
I have a quick question, Dan, on the diversity side of things. How's that playing out in Chicago with these open circles? Are you able to attract men of color and others, or is it still predominantly a white male thing?
It depends on the referral sources that are going on. Meetup.com, certainly a certain demographic does Meetup.com, so we are getting younger men as far as diversification through Meetup.com. It's a great thing. And in the younger generation, a little bit more diversity comes in that way. However, if you're looking at the south side of Chicago, in typical neighborhoods that we would talk about with being Black or Hispanic, how many of them are on Meetup.com? There's a less of them demographically that are on Meetup.com. So social service agencies and other distributions for marketing are a better way to go with it, churches and things like that. For professionalism on the north side with therapists, well, that's a clientele of professionals, and the diversification comes in through those levels around hand flyers and what therapists refer and what the individual therapist. If you had ones that worked with a culturally diverse population, you're going to get a lot more. So again, strategically target your allied resources and referral sources, and you'll get a lot better movement.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And then another quick follow-up question. I had two men recently on the phone talking about the weekend and mentioned the price, and it was a closed door. It just stopped the whole thing, and I did everything I could to turn the aircraft carrier there in the moment, but it was really tough. Do you have any, what do you do with this price tag that it's just a showstopper for so many men?
So I'll give you the Chicago model, this could be another call that we bring me and Glenn Barker on. I want to share what happened, okay? Vice President of Chicago hired Glenn Barker. We had $12,000 in our scholarship fund. Do you know how much is in the scholarship fund as of today? $12,000. I haven't touched it at all. And they have a statement in the bylaws of Chicago: no man will be turned away from a weekend due to financial resources. The idea is you don't talk to him about the price. You give it to Glenn Barker, and Glenn Barker does a great job of walking people through this. He first wins them on why does he want the weekend? Why is he interested? And he sells them on the anchoring processes. Is this what you're looking to get? Great, you're going. Because you obviously want this, you need this, and this is part of your vision. Wouldn't it make this happy in your life to have this happen? These reality, closeness, the type of conversation I just had with you. Isn't that what you're looking for? Great. So now yes, it's going. Now, how do you get to go? We share the economics, that economically it costs $695 per man, and the staff men are paying to go through. What can you do to help this weekend come in? Can you come in with the $695? And for every man, what can you do now, and what can you do over the next 3 months or 6 months, and what can you do after the weekend? And he develops payment plans. And for every man that can't do it, he says, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You're going to pass the hat in your community, and we're going to pass the hat in our community, and we're going to raise the rest. And he's been able to raise the rest in that kind of partnership with every man.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. So, this was just they just heard the number and were gone. It was kind of, it was their issue. But I was surprised by how quickly that just was a turnoff for them.
Right.
Jim Katona, are you saying you want to say something, or are you just adjusting your set?
Yeah, no. So I want to say that, Dan, we do a similar thing in Philadelphia, except we have an emphasis on that. We don't discuss the price. When a man says he wants to join, we turn him over to our enrollment coordinator, and he works all that out. And any questions about how much does it cost, the answer is no man has ever been turned away because he hasn't been able to pay. or, you know, so they don't usually ask what it costs. And if they do, that's the answer that we give. But we don't try, we encourage our men not to try and negotiate that or discuss that and just turn him over to our enrollment people.
Yeah, we do the same in NorCal, and Randall is brilliant at dealing with those men. So we put it all on Randall.
Right. And so we just had a handoff of enrollment coordinators, and it was a smooth transition because the guy coming in understudied the guy going out for 2 trainings and then took the position, and the guy who had left supported the man who's doing it now in the last training. So there was a lot of good support and overlap, which I think is important in that position in the community.
Great. Randall, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just want to comment that in the past 6 months, I have made a shift in the way we address a man on a first email or when I talk to them. We used to kind of convoluted. It's what I inherited. They pay the deposit, then they're supposed to have $300 in the bank with us before they go to the training, and it was kind of convoluted. So what I did is I get the deposit. I always stress to the man, at least try to come up with the 150, and most guys can do that. And then I either offer to them the payment plan after I've talked to them a little bit about their money, and most guys will go with the payment plan over the 4 months. I'm finding that we're dipping into the scholarship fund far less if I just come right out and say, so it's expensive for you. What if we just spread this out over 4 months? And I just give them that option like straight away. And 90% of those guys go, oh, that's great. Thanks a lot. That's what is $136.25 a month? Yeah. And they go for it right away. So that has reduced the amount of time I spend, for one thing, and the amount of money that comes out of our scholarship fund.
Ken from Syracuse, to me, it's really important to identify your closers. We've got this problem in New York where we have guys who have self-identified as enrollment coordinators, but they're not good closers. They tend to turn people off. And without having that ability to close, even though you think you do, it's actually a detriment to the community. You don't get enough guys enrolled. And I think that's been a big part of our problem with our low substandard weekends, sub-attended weekends. And that's one of the things I'm going to be having hard conversations with men in our organization about. We need to identify our closers. I'm a closer. Most of us are probably closers. It takes a bit of finesse to talk to a man about why he needs the weekend or what he can get out of the weekend or what we need from him.
Okay, we've got, just as a time check, we've got 15 minutes to go. I have to say, Dan and Boysen and all of you, this has been one of the most valuable conversations we've had on these calls. And I'm going to make the recording broadly available to the other enrollment coordinators. But if there's anything you want to add or any other questions you have, chances are, if you have a question or something you want to discuss, one of the men who's going to listen to the recording is going to have that question. So let's try to make this as valuable as possible. Any other questions you have for Boysen or anybody else on the call, for Dan, for me, whatever?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is George Wine Chase. I'm calling from Kansas City, Missouri.
George, you've got a terrible echo.
Yeah, I do. Sorry.
Are you coming through both your computer and your headset?
Yes.
Okay, you need to use one or the other.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're good. Now you're good.
Okay, I'm muted phone, and it's strange with... Anyway, I had computer glitches. Now I'm getting echo in my head.
But we're not. So
I'm going to talk without my earpiece on. I have a question basically about leadership. I am new to the position, and we are just starting an open men's circle in Kansas City. It's going to start on the 28th. And one of the questions is, what is best practice in terms of leadership there? We are doing a freestanding open men's circle.
Dan?
Is that enough information?
Yeah, that's enough information. As far as leadership goes, who can be a leader or facilitator, take point on an open men's circle. The model that we have in the manual is the people show up about a half an hour before the open men's circle for that day. And they go through and they ask who's going to do round one, who's going to be the welcomer, who's going to be the follow-up person, who's going to do round two. And it's more of a group effort. But from a hunter-gatherer geek model, it's always good to guarantee that you have one or two good facilitators in the room. They don't have to be leaders, but know your group and make sure that your group is not just full of people that don't have good facilitation skills. And if you do, provide support for that to happen. I don't like the leader term as far as that protocol and all that other stuff. It's a group effort.
Dan, define hunter-gatherer and geek, please.
All right, the hunter is the person that's the enrollment guy. He's about how many people showed up tonight.
Raise your hand if you're a hunter.
Right. And the gatherer is the person who likes to facilitate and love and stay connected with the person after he shows up.
Raise your hand if you're a gatherer.
Okay. And the geek is somebody who generally tends to have a little bit of introvertness in them, might not like to be the bold hunter and might not be the bold facilitator, but loves to support a team and likes to do some dishes and chop some wood and be a part of a team and is willing to go do, hey, I'll send out some emails and hey, I'll make some phone calls, and they're the support person.
Raise your hand if you're a geek.
I'm a geek as well.
Yeah.
And many of us are both. There's sometimes you get people that are all three. If you're all three, you know.
There you go.
But never do the job as all three. That's one of the things. Make sure you have more than one person on your team that you're celebrating and having fun together doing it.
I wanted to say something about leadership also. We used to meet early. We rarely meet early these days. We let the group determine who is leading round by round, and that's one of the ways that we model, like, okay, here's what healthy leadership looks like. Who's got the next round? I'll walk with you through it. And doing that, we started with two guys, me and Robert Zeller, founded our group, very quickly added two more, and we've had a core group of 4 really strong facilitators for as long as we've had the group. And that covers people on vacation, that covers people are out, that covers when we've had 20 men in circle and we split into 2 circles. We can still have strong facilitators in both circles. So I find 4 guys that know or are willing to learn that process.
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Now I'm just on phone because there's crazy echo there. Yes, we actually have 5 men that are committed ongoing for the next 6 months, and fairly strong leaders. And we went through a training that modeled the Open Men's Circle protocol. And my suggestion to our group is that I really appreciate kind of the freedom and flexibility going forward. But I'm just thinking, starting off, my thought was basically have one leader for the first half, and the protocol kind of splits it into 2 halves, and then the second one. For the second half, the third person be kind of the greeter and dealing with those kinds of issues. And then the other 2 men who are going to be there to begin with are there as support in the circle to help facilitate that process.
Great.
Any thoughts about that?
Let authenticity be the primary focus. That sounds great. And if it feels authentic when the group is happening, then do it. And if it starts feeling phony, contrived, hierarchical, stop.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions, discussion? This is just, I'm just knocked out by the quality of this call. And to that end, and if you, Sam, I'll be right there. If you have other topics like this that you want to discuss, let me know, and I'll schedule it for one of our monthly calls. And we have a record number of men on this call, and the quality of the discussion has been terrific. So, let me know what you want. That'll be useful to you in your work as enrollment coordinators. Sam, were you going to say something or ask something?
Yeah, Sam from NorCal. So I'm in the steering committee for a gateway for October. And one question came up in the committee was, how do you handle support group fatigue and also trying to get people to join an open circle?
You realize that's a San Francisco problem.
That's true.
Any thoughts on that, anybody?
Yeah, so one we're going to talk about, I want to clarify what's support group fatigue. If you're talking about marketing and, another support group, that's a marketing piece. This is not a support group. This is something very, very different. It's about men celebrating their manhood and learning, and the edge, and all of our marketing talks about much more than just a support group. It's men like us. Do you want to hang out with men like us? These powerful, compassionate people. So I don't know if that answered your question around support, or is support group fatigue, I've been coming to this circle for 2 years and I'm ready to move on.
I do agree it's a marketing issue. I'm just trying to problem solve in my mind how to reformat words and use the right language to attract men to join the circle.
I think the key thing, Sam, will be that it's not a support group. It's a group, a circle for men to do men's work, and that's not a support group. That's a place where you go to do work, not only to get supported. Dan, would you agree, or Boysen?
I have issue with work. The circles that I sit in, I stretch much more beyond the work. I tend to, I've done work for 30 years, and I'm more than just about the work. So that's just my own unique perspective on what I'm looking for about being in a circle. If I was in a circle that was just all about work, and work, that's a support group, and I'm not interested in being a part of that right now. I want a men's group that's challenging and encouraging and growing the new sacred masculine, and is making strides towards incredible inspiration in what's happening in the world.
Well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
Okay, it's about 6 minutes to go. I'm going to go to a checkout unless anybody has a burning question, and of course, feel free to get in touch.
One quick question, Ed.
Boysen offline. Go ahead.
I just was wondering if I had mentioned the spirit of harmonious cooperation yet.
You have now.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't be late for the check-in, and then you'll make sure you can do that.
I know. I get it. I'm here.
All right. So we're going to go, unless I hear anything burning, we're going to check out. I want to thank you, man. Sorry, go ahead.
Ed, I've got a couple of things. Boysen started me, got me intrigued with Open Circle when we were on Ragbri together, and we've been doing an Open Circle for about 4 years. And two things. One is I invite people in the community, in our community, that are not sitting in a regular I group. It helps encourage them to get re-engaged that way. And then the other thing that I did was reach out to the leader body and the leaders in our community and ask them to come as a guest, to bring a process or something like that. So it was really a way of bringing leadership in as well as re-engaging men in a circle. So I'm out with that.
Thank you, David. Okay.
Ed, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's that?
Yeah, this is Michael Erickson. I'm late to the call. I'm from Central Great Lakes. I have a question.
Go.
Real quick. I had sent you an email, but maybe it's also important over this. Is there any processes or models for how to invite a man to attend the I group or invite him to the weekend?
Yeah, Michael, when you get the recording, there's a whole manual on these open circles that Dan and Boysen referenced at the beginning of the call.
Okay.
And if that's not clear, give me a call.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, quick checkout, men. What's your key learning from the call? So who's on 805? Is that Jamie?
It's Ken Fry here, Santa Barbara Community.
Great.
Yes.
Check in and check out,
Thank
Ken.
you. Yes, Ken Fry checking in. I was late on the call, a little shame around that, but really happy that I did make it and learning tons. I feel a little trepidation around our upcoming NWTA. We're 6 weeks out. We got 2 men enrolled. I'm not sure what to do about that exactly. I have been putting a huge effort to our community, but that's all I can do as far as I've been mentored. And I'm not taking it personally. So
okay,
thank you so much for the
Ken, give me a
mentor.
call. I have
Yeah.
some suggestions for you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, I hope.
Great, thanks. The man from Central Great Lakes who just spoke.
Michael Erickson, checking out late, but better late than never.
Right. Thank you. George.
Yes, George from Kansas City. Checking out, grateful that I made the call, and despite technological glitches, we'll try and clean that up. Really appreciate the energy and attitude and information here. I'm a sponge right now. I'm checking out.
Thank you, George. Sam.
Yeah, Sam, Magnificent Whale Shark, looking forward for an open circle for a college age queer youth that will be coming up in March, and I'm out.
Oh, Ken. You're on mute. There you go.
Ken Stoneberg, upstate New York, central New York. Very happy, very satisfied, not feeling alone. I'm out.
Oh, spirit of harmonious cooperation.
Gentle Grizzly with butterfly wings, checking out with joy and gratitude. And what I am taking away from this meeting is that we are an awesome fucking organization. Oh.
Thanks, Jim. Boysen.
Your obscenity just offends me, Jim. It's just you need to fucking get a handle on your mouth. Hodgson out. Grateful I enjoyed the call, and later. Bye.
Fuck yeah. Marlon. You're on mute.
This is Marlon playing Big Fish, Big Island, Hawaii. I was late on the call, but I was out running 4 miles, so I feel good about that. And what I learned about this was the thing that had to do with this is not a support group. This is not a support group. That's huge for me. And I'm going to make sure I bring that to our annual gathering, which is happening Sunday. So thank you, man. I'll be back.
Thanks, Marlon. Galvagno.
David Galvagno, Direwolf. Checking in, glad. What I learned is there's a better way for us to do our open circle that we've been doing since I've come into it. And Jim, I spent 20 years in Philly. I fucking love your accent.
Thanks, David.
And then I'm out.
Greg.
Greg Kleiner, Golden Eagle up in. I'm for this work. Grateful for you guys spending time here together. What I'm going away with is the power of the open circle, and in these times, all the rest. This is what the world needs. The world needs more men. So let's get them in. Let's get them in. I'm out.
Thanks, Michael.
Michael Dameron, Puma, checking out with feeling supported and grateful. What I'm leaving with is an opportunity to bring the disenfranchised man back into the circle. I'm out.
Great. Davis.
David, Smiling Bingo Tiger, grateful, powerful stuff today. New tools to work with. I'm very thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody. I'm out.
Thank you. Randall.
Randall, Braveheart Old Faithful, checking out, feeling like I'm going to bring this to my group which we've been Open Circle for many, many years, and bring us to a once a month and push that a little harder. Feeling grateful, sad, and a little bit angry. I'm out.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, checking out. Joy to be here. Joy, so many men. I'll put a future statement, which is what up for me is coming back here and talking about open events and how those can be incredible enrollment tools as well. So I'll put my hat to you, Ed. On
All right, you got it. Probably next time, but we'll talk. Gerowitz, Two Hearts, checking out Just Proud, and I'll make a future statement to every enrollment coordinator in the country, whether they're on this call or not. You are not alone. Thanks, man. Talk to you next month.
Thank you.